Hey everybody, Shabbat Shalom, almost Chodesh Tov. It is fall. You can see some fall foliage in the background. I love the colors, picking up my papers that just blew in the wind. Fall has always been actually a favorite season of mine growing up in Boston, and the beautiful colors of the trees, the beautiful leaves, and it always feels like a time of hints of freshness and promise and things that can happen. Perhaps it's also the beauty. It's also the beauty of the season. And it's also a time when we begin the Torah. And I wanted to share with you a few thoughts about beginnings. The first letter in the Torah, the first word in the Torah, and the first phrase in the Torah. Perhaps some thoughts to take with us forward. So let me show you what the first letters look like. Bereishit bara Elokim. These are the first three words in the Torah, and you'll notice that the bet, the first letter, is bigger than the other letters. What can we learn from this? Well, the first letter of the alphabet in Hebrew is Aleph, so that feels deliberate. It feels like there's a reason. Pay attention to me. Try to think of what you can understand from starting with the second letter of the alphabet, bet, instead of Aleph. And I leave that for you to go research and find for yourself reasons. But if we look at the actual letter itself, there's something I'd like to show you. The bet points upwards. You see that little piece that points upwards? And that, some people say, is to remind us that we should put our hearts and our thoughts and our minds up to God. And secondly, notice that it is closed from three sides, but moving in the direction of Hebrew, it is open. And that, a thought to remind us not to look so much on what's going backwards, and maybe not so much trying to understand what's happening from on high or from down below, but to point ourselves in the direction of going forward. That's the first letter. Now let's move on to the first word. The first word is Bereishit. Bereishit is a little bit of a complicated word in Hebrew. The bet could stand on its own. It's actually a preposition meaning inside, within, or of, or be, or ba, in the. Bereishit could be understood a few different ways. It could be with also. So Bereishit maybe is with something called Reshit, or maybe it means be in Reshit, in the beginning, like the word Rosh, head, like Rosh Hashanah. So Reshit can mean in the beginning. Also, it has tucked into it, I'll show you, bara. Bet Reish Aleph is part of the word Bereishit, which is the word of creation. In fact, it's the second word in the Torah, is bara, which I will show you as well. So there's a reason that God chose to start with Bereishit. And a third option for Bereishit is that the whole word is just one word and you take away bet being a preposition. Bereishit could be a something, an entity. Bereishit bara, something called Bereishit bara. What did that entity create? Elokim. So that leads you to a few different directions, and that leads us to the first phrase in the Torah. The first phrase is three words: Bereishit bara Elokim. So as we said before, it could be with the help of something called Reshit, God created heaven and earth. It could mean in the beginning God created heaven and earth, and it could mean Bereishit bara Elokim, something called Bereshit created God, and then God continued to create everything else. This actually came up with the Septuagint. The Septuagint were 70 scholars who lived in 3rd century BCE. At the time, the language that the Jews were speaking was moving to Greek. And these 70 scholars were tasked by the Greeks to translate the Torah into Greek. And you can imagine, as I just said, just these first three words could be translated a few different ways. And a miracle happened. And the miracle was that even though they were put into 70 different rooms, everybody translated into Greek. My Greek is very poor, so I can't tell you the Greek, but I can tell you what it is in English. In the English, they all translated it in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So, what are our takeaways from this? First, there's so much we can learn from small details. Second, there are different ways of understanding words and phrases, and it is so easy to make assumptions. So we learn from this to clarify what was the real meaning. And third, we should look for freshness and newness, especially in learning Torah, but perhaps in things that we do every day. This teaches us to start again and look again and delve deeper and think about different ways to learn it. And fourth, like the Septuagint, there are miracles in our world. So blessing us all that we will recognize and find those miracles. Wishing everybody Shabbat, Bereishit, Shalom, Chodesh Tov, Rosh Chodesh, Mar Cheshvan next week, sending love.